We'll go ahead and get started. For those who don't know me, my name is Cole McFerrin. I'm a Faculty Support and Development Manager in the University of Arizona Global Campus Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. I specifically work with the faculty classroom experience. Over the last month, you have certainly realized that we have rolled out quite a few updates during this first month of the year. We have been trickling out information. You've seen Canvas banners. We've done some information in the weekly digest, linked out to resources, some handouts, some videos. But we wanted to take a little bit of time today to specifically talk through the updates that have gone on over the last month. The Waypoint one specifically is one that we want to spend a lot of time on because we have gotten lots and lots of feedback from you, wonderful folks on that. And it has been quite a significant change. So I anticipate us spending a lot of time talking about that today. But I do want to talk about the most recent updates that we've gone through. I will go ahead and do just a quick walkthrough and show a couple of quick tips and tricks of each of the new features that we rolled out recently. And thank you to those of you who did submit questions for this session. I have been able to, I believe, answer almost all of them, trickled in throughout the presentation. And then we'll do a little bit of extra time at the end for Q&A. But I want to start with the rich content editor. There were some really nice updates there that I'm happy to show off and show a couple things about. We'll have a couple updates coming to Signalz here in the coming weeks that I wanted to mention. And then we will spend a majority of the time, I think, talking about some of the Waypoint updates. And we have some very positive news on that front. So very excited to have all of you here today and look forward to diving into some of these. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a live rich content editor. And we did release a brief video to walk through a few of these features, but we know that having a very live environment and seeing someone click around can sometimes be more meaningful than a quick handout or something like that. So we want to take some time to walk through this today with you and show you some of the highlights. Really, with the rich content editor update, the look and feel is different, but almost everything that you were able to do before you can do now. And honestly, there are multiple ways to do some of the same things, which is really nice and makes it a little bit more intuitive for faculty members and also students, because this is what they use to post in discussion forums as well. So starting in the top left, we have a new edit. We have a new text toolbar here up on top. We have an edit, which gives us some of the basic edit functions that we can also use keyboard shortcuts for: cut, copy, paste as text, select all. View, here's one of the most common questions that we got about this update. It did make it just a little bit less intuitive to find how to switch back and forth from HTML editor. So there is one way here up in this view screen that we can either flip to full screen, which is really nice if you're working on a very large draft of something, but then you can switch back and forth from HTML editor right here from the view tab, or there's a shortcut right down here. It says switch to HTML editor where that little code button is. A lot of people that saw that didn't realize it at first, nor did I until I actually read one of the guides. So there's a couple different ways to switch back and forth from that. We move on to insert. We can insert external links. One thing that did come up with this update, and I actually have a Canvas ticket in right now for, is we used to have the access to be able to link to both external links, just like a website or something, but also link to pages within your course. So we lost that ability. It was just kind of a weird thing that happened with the switch with the way that our permissions work. So I do have a Canvas ticket and we should be able to have that restored soon. There is a workaround though, if you want to, for example, you want to link out to your week 1 lecture or a discussion, you can put in week 1 lecture and then do the actual URL link to that as a workaround for the time being. But we're hoping that that will be restored for those of you that do use that feature. The image upload actually has a really nice update. When you pull that open, you're able to, I've tested this somewhat and it's worked pretty well in my experience. You're able to drag and drop if you'd like your images, which is really handy. You can, of course, click to select your own files, but we have the options to go with kind of a stock image feature here, or inserting the URL for an image. But also one of the things that I really like about this new update is with the images, we're able to get to our user images really easily. So any images that you've uploaded in the past are going to be available right there, and you can just click and bring those right in. So that's a really handy, some nice improvements on the image embed with this update as well. For media, that was a really nice update that they included with this package is the video recorder has been updated, and they were somehow able to both increase the quality and the upload speed. That was one of the biggest qualms that we hear about, faculty wanting to incorporate video presence into their course, is that the video upload tool was slow, and it really was, and it didn't give a good indicator of how far along it was. In my brief experience, testing this so far, the new video recorder is much improved. One thing that did come with that, though, the other day, I was talking with a couple of faculty members I'll mention later, but we did lose the ability when you're recording video or audio, which I won't attempt to do now or it would crash everything. But you can't actually scroll up and down like you used to be able to. Say you're in a discussion forum and you're responding with video and you want to look at the student's post while you're actually talking to them. You might have to have another window open with that discussion open. You don't have as much free will to scroll around as we did before with that. But otherwise, some very positive updates on the front for the video recorder tool that is native to there. So some other good news on the front of this update. So we got feedback recently, and I've been spending a lot of time over the last couple of weeks in the 2020 classroom satisfaction experience survey from last year. And one of the things that we've heard since we moved over to Canvas is that faculty want to be able to have more than one attachment to an announcement or a discussion post. And this actually, I think, and I did some testing with it last night, it seems to work well. You can actually, upload your documents here, and then you can load them. And then this will store some of your old user files here. So if you have documents that you use time and time again, they'll show up right here. So you seem to be able to link to multiple documents now with this new update to the rich content editor. So I don't know exactly how quickly it will fill, user storage, things like that. We still need to kick the tires a little bit and have faculty in there using it before we know some of the limitations, I think. But some good news on that front. That's something that we've heard from faculty for a long time that they wanted the ability to do. And I think that this update has fixed that from what I've been able to see. So good news there. Then there's some other tools here for those courses that do use things like this equation, table. The ability to embed is right there, which is nice. So one other thing I wanted to mention, there's another way to go through. I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can format the text here. In addition to on the toolbar, you can see a lot of those options available on that toolbar as well. For the tools, we have the word count. And here, hidden in the apps, is the YouTube button. We had one question come in about, where did YouTube go? It used to be awesome to be able to have those videos right there and such an easy way to embed. If you go into apps, you can actually see the YouTube app is still there, that we can embed those easily. Or if you wanted to, if you were on a specific YouTube video, you could always get the embed code and then do it that way, either way. But the app is still there. It's just in a slightly different place. So. And then we do have some additional options here for tables for situations that call for that. And then really on this toolbar, we kind of see a reiteration of a lot of basically everything that we see here. We see our font size, some different paragraph styles, bold, italic, underline, highlight, text color, superscript, subscript, external links, which should hopefully soon include course links as well. But then just the other ways to upload image, media, documents, the apps, some more text formatting. And then at the bottom here, they added a quick map for some of the keyboard shortcuts that were added with the recent update. Obviously, you can do things like copy paste and other things, but some of these more advanced, I guess, shortcuts were added with this most recent update as well. And then you can see the accessibility checker is right down there as well. So it's right there and super handy. As soon as you get done with a post or an announcement, you can click that to make sure that everything is up to par with levels of accessibility. The word count tool, like I mentioned before, the HTML editor, switch to full screen. And we also have the ability to make this as big or as small as we want with the new rich content editor. So no real changes down below in the features there. But I did want to take, I know that that's a lot, that we kind of just talked through, but I want to take maybe just a brief moment. I want to thank my CETL colleagues who are in the chat today. There are lots of folks who have helped to make all these updates possible. We'll talk about a little bit, but I've been trying to keep up a little bit with chat. Kelly, it is, from what I was able to test last night, it does seem like we can attach more than one document. So it won't show up quite like the attachment. It will actually just show up as a link to that document and it'll open right up. It's really cool. So if you do go into that document area and upload some of those documents, you can link right to them. And from what I tested last night, it does seem to give us that access to do that now, which I'm really excited about. I know that's been an ask for quite a while. An expiration date for announcements. That's a good question. I don't see anything like that. I know that we can delay the post, but we don't necessarily have a way to take them down automatically without going in and manually doing them at this point. No. There's a lot of good chat going on here. I think we covered a lot of it. And for what we aren't able to cover, we're going to do some Q&A at the very end. And or we can definitely follow up on ones that we don't necessarily have answers to today, which that will definitely happen at some point or another. So I am going to, oh, Wendy, that's a good question. So are they working on the option of storing announcements for future classes? That is actually, so one of the most common requests that we got in the survey last year for announcements specifically was the ability to like import from one class to another very easily. There are some ways that with our user permissions, we aren't able to do that at this point, but I'm bringing it back up again to see if there are any ways that we can, maybe ask Canvas or see what we can do to make something like that happen, because that would be fantastic. I would love the ability to do that. That would save us a lot of time. So I want to go ahead and bring back up my PowerPoint so we can talk briefly through just a couple of the Signalz updates that are going to be coming up here within the next couple of weeks. The specific rollout date to be determined, but within the next few weeks, we should see some of these rollouts updated here in Signalz for us. So one of the first things that we are going to be seeing in the new iteration of Signalz is there will be a notification on the left-hand side for when a student responds to a nudge that you send, which is a nice way. Obviously, you'll be able to see it, come through as an email and everything like that as well. But there will be a nice notification there right on the left side of the screen there in Signalz, letting you know, and then you can view all of that communication within Signalz as well. There's an option to do that, which is really nice. And if you haven't been in Signalz for a while, there's a chance that you may have even missed out on some of these, updates that went out late last year. There was a lot going on late last year, so understandable if you missed some of these dashboard updates. But you can see along the top of the screen there's some really, really nice visuals that go along with to track the engagement of your course, in addition to all of the rich student data that is below there. So we'll be seeing that inbox notification with this new rollout. We'll also be seeing the rebranding of this tool, which is exciting. We love to have our red and blue now all over everything. I love it. And the other, so I'm going to go back actually briefly. We did have one. So this, how can I best explain this? There was a feature in Signalz. So when you send a nudge to a student and they respond to you, it will actually give you a notification from Signalz, which we are very much used to that in Canvas with the inbox, because we get a notification from Canvas saying, hey, you have an inbox message, and we can respond to that and it will go all the way to the student. With this, the way it was first set up, those messages did not go all the way back. It was not meant to be a tool that you could reply to. It was kind of a no reply inbox. But with this new iteration of Signalz, what's going to happen is if you do reply to that notification, it will trickle all the way to that student, and it will also be logged there in the classroom as well, so you can see that. So some really, really nice tweaks coming up in the future for Signalz here in the next coming weeks as that comes out. And now I want to spend a good chunk of our time today talking about Waypoint and really showing folks some of the good news that we have and some of the strategies I think that will really help save people some time and get them used to this new more robust tool that we're working with. And I want to start, maybe by just thanking, first off, all of you for being patient with the growing pains with this. The changes that we ended up seeing on rollout were larger than we anticipated, and we really appreciate your patience in working through them. At the same time, I want to thank my team, the CETL, for helping everybody and supporting everybody. Justice Madden has been amazing. He is here with us today. He's our Director of Academic Technology Solutions with Zovio. We have been beating his door down. We have been talking with Justice on the daily, and he's just done a fantastic job of liaising to the Zovio developers about what we want and what fixes are going to make the most impact for our faculty and acting quickly. So a big thank you to all of those individuals. And yesterday, I had a fantastic opportunity to meet with Charles Holmes and James Moore, who were able to walk me through what they were feeling and what their experiences were like and what they were hoping for Waypoint in the future. And it was really insightful. And I just wanted to try to get more of a sense. We've obviously set up this Q&A and took questions, and we've seen all the emails and feedback coming in, but it was really nice to just have a very focused conversation with a couple faculty members to really dive into how we can make this thing better. And so the other thing is they felt better too after our conversation, and optimistic that the fixes that were put in place just a couple of days ago will make a big impact on our faculty workflow. So we're really happy about that. So thank you to everybody for being patient and for helping kind of keep pushing this along. I mentioned earlier, I've been working in the 2020 classroom experience satisfaction survey quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. The timing was coincidental, but one of the, I was able to really take away some very useful insights about the faculty perspectives of Waypoint and the faculty experience in Waypoint. I graded it myself, I get it, but I also was really just able to grasp better how faculty feel about it. And to be frank, faculty have felt and continue to feel that Waypoint is an area of opportunity for improvement. And honestly, there were two main things that I really was able to take away from that, and the fact that the load time being slow, and this was before this update, by the way, load times being slow and then formatting being thrown off were probably the two most mentioned concerns. And I am fairly confident that both of those will be better with this new product. Unfortunately, with the initial rollout, the way that the tool was set up and the way that it was refreshing so much exacerbated the slowness factor and made it even worse. But now with the way that I'll talk about the most recent fixes that were put into place that really make that much smoother. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but I don't want to jump too far ahead. One of the things that I want to make sure that I'm addressing all of the questions that came in, and I saw this question on the classroom survey, and I saw this question repeated in the survey responses that we got for this meeting. And faculty want to know why do we use Waypoint? And it's an understandable question. Because SpeedGrader lives right there in Canvas. There are other tools that are available. What is it about Waypoint that we really makes us use it, and why is that? And I can share that Waypoint does a very specific job of mapping our learning outcomes in ways that Canvas tools cannot, from my understanding. And instead of trying to, butchering an explanation for that, I would love to direct, if you're ever more interested in finding out more about that, Tricia Lauer and Nicole Perry came to one of our Classroom Management Mastery Series sessions last year, I want to say last fall, and they came in and just did a fantastic job of explaining some of that rich assessment data that we get, what we do with it, why Waypoint is unique. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I would love to direct you back to that to see a little bit more of an explanation from the experts about why that is. So just a little bit behind that. And then why the update? Why did we update this PDF tool? The old one that we used was, simple. It definitely did the job, but it was actually a product that was no longer being supported. The company that was supporting it was no longer going to be supporting it. It was going out of commission, so we didn't have too much of a choice. So it seems like an eternity ago, I think it was a couple weeks ago, that we implemented the first rollout. We had an issue that we did not foresee, where the document would refresh to the very top page after every single in-text comment that a faculty member would leave, which made things very slow and frustrating. In addition to that, the load times were rather slow. So when it had refresh, every comment and the load times were slow. Kind of a double whammy there. So with that first update we did, we were able to actually get it to where the refresh would only take you to the last page you were on, which was nice. They were able to really implement that fix quickly. But the fix that I'm more excited about was rolled out on Wednesday night, and we sent out an email with some more specific explanation. But the long and short of it is that the document tool, the annotation tool, will no longer refresh after every single in-text comment you leave. There won't be any flash, it won't reload, there will be no bar. The only time that the paper itself will reload is if you actually edit a comment that you've left previously. So that's not going to happen terribly often, but if you do see it happen, that's really the only time we see that. We were also able to improve the load times itself. So when the paper does have to load, which should just be once, it should be quicker. They were able to do some work on the servers that house that, and that should be much improved and has been from what I've seen so far. There was an issue early on where special characters and file names were producing an error when students would try to submit. That has since been fixed. And then, excuse me, one of the biggest growing pain points with the initial rollout was that the student view was changed quite a bit more than we had anticipated, to where a student would actually have to hover over a comment or a highlight to make the text appear. And that was something that we were not happy with right away. Obviously, we want, we have, one of our biggest struggles is getting students to find their, get to their feedback and actually read it. So, we want as few hurdles as we possibly can for students to see their feedback. So that student view with this update that went in place Wednesday night, that student view is much, much improved, should be consistent across browsers. We did get some questions about viewing student feedback on a mobile, which was not a good experience with that first iteration. But that should be vastly improved. We do want to get a few, it's kind of touch and go with mobile, it depends on what the device is and what exactly you're looking at. But this new viewer for the student markup should be much, much more consistent. So we're very happy about that and looking forward to that. And I do want to share just briefly, Justice was willing to put together a quick screencast of what that new student view looks like. I'm going to go ahead and post it in the chat there. But we can see from this screenshot, it looks a lot like what we see on our side. We see the annotations there along the left side. It's very straightforward, but the comments are there and available right away without students having to hover or click or anything like that. So very, very much looking forward to having that student enhancement on that side. So with that, I want to take a little time to pop into an actual Waypoint course and go through, yes, Dr. Ryan, that is exactly where I'm going. I'm going to show just a few strategies and efficiencies that will really make this better. And we have an ongoing Waypoint wish list. So, we were taking all the faculty feedback and funneling it into our, Zovio context as much as we can. And Justice and I have already had a couple of conversations about our Waypoint wish list. Can we get this to carry from student to student? Can we get this preference to keep with a user? Little things like that. But I think that some of the things that we're going to show you now will make it a little easier. So initially, when we get to a loaded paper, we see it looks very different than it did before. But with just a couple clicks, we can really, really improve this experience. So the first thing that I do, honestly, since I've been grading in this new system, is taking this panel and toggling it off for the most part. It really just frees up a lot more space. That's one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got is faculty aren't happy with the zoom and they lose a lot of space in that paper. It's harder to see. And that's absolutely 100% true. So toggling that panel is one of the first things that I do. And in addition, fit to width is the best key, and it's right there at the very top, which makes it, pretty handy. So once I get into a paper, I'm going to toggle that panel and then I'm going to fit to width. So within a couple clicks, I'm already in a better place and I feel good about that. Something I've been dabbling with, and I'll share the link to it. I'll share it now so I don't forget, but I've been toying with some of the keyboard shortcuts. There's actually a whole list of keyboard shortcuts that are available in this tool that I think will improve the experience. It's not going to make it perfect, but it does help a lot. So say, for example, I want to, I come in and my paper is still kind of zoomed out. I can use my keyboard shortcuts to zoom in, zoom out. I can get it to fit to width if I hit Control and 0, and then Control and, plus and minus, obviously zoom in and out. I can page up and down if I want to go full pages up and down, which is kind of handy sometimes if you're looking at a whole paper in that way. But so I think what I'm going to do when I get into a paper is I'm going to turn that panel off, I'm going to fit to width, and then I'm going to start. So there's two main methods that I think were a little bit hard to explain, and hopefully this will iterate it best. There are two main ways to go through markups on a paper. So we are defaulted to this arrow pointer tool. in our new markup. And it works really well because you can just highlight some text and then you get to choose what kind of markup you want to leave, which is nice. But it is a couple extra clicks because every time you highlight, you have to click again. So if you know, specifically, okay, I'm only going to be highlighting, or okay, I really, I'm an underliner. That's my thing. You can click on highlight from the get-go. And then every time you click, it will actually just know that you want to highlight. So if you use the arrow pointer, say you want to use a bunch of different types of markups, the arrow probably makes more sense so you can switch back and forth easily. But if you really just like one type of markup, you can use this up here, this toolbar up here to turn those on, and then it's just one click to highlight that text. Or if you really want to, and I think this is what I'm going to try on my next round of grading this weekend, is so we turn the panel off, we get our zoom right, and then when I know that there is, say I want to start highlighting, if you push the H key, it actually turns your highlight on. There's some really, really cool shortcuts in there. For example, if you want to do underline, I think it's U. You just push the U button and it turns your underline on. So every time you get into a paper, it's going to take a couple clicks and a couple keystrokes, but you can really customize it to the way that I think is going to make this a better experience and really gives you a lot more robust options than we had previously. I think undeniably there will be a couple more clicks, but there will be a lot of positives, I think, once we get used to it, and hopefully we can start to customize it a little bit more to our liking. I was talking with James and Charles yesterday, for example. Maybe it would be nice if most faculty prefer that left panel be closed. Is there any way we can default to that? Things like that. And we are very fortunate to have Zovio's ear in providing that feedback and for them working on tangible things like that moving forward to help improve this tool. So I'm kind of looking through my notes. I want to make sure that I'm covering the questions that came in. Most of the questions, honestly, that we got were around the refresh and that being an issue. But you can even see from me leaving these test comments, there's no refresh after every single comment, which is probably the most common piece of feedback that we got. There was one question about, how can you confirm that a comment has been left? People who are specifically using the free text box, I think we're looking for that. And anytime you pull up this panel, you should be able to confirm that that is where your comments are. If you see it on the left panel, that means it is confirmed to be in there. And there are a couple of different ways that you can look at those as well. Another thing that we had come in is and I would have to do a little bit more testing, but I think I understand what was happening is when you use the free text option, which is pretty cool, you can just kind of enter, a comment right there on the paper. But some of them weren't quite showing up like they would have because I think the text boxes were being made too small. So if you make just a tiny little text box and then try to enter it, it's not going to work as well. But for text boxes that are larger, I think that might help that solution in particular. It was just looking like a tiny dot or something, I think, on the student feedback. So that should hopefully help that situation. And honestly, in that hotkey guide that I shared, there are a couple different ways that you can mark a paper up that aren't even available on the toolbar, which I thought was kind of interesting. Let me see if I can find it. For example, there is a sticky note function. Yeah, if you push N, I believe. Oh, I have to go. Let's see if I can get it to go. Well, it might not want to go right now. That's the way they're working. But I'm hoping that a lot of those shortcuts will help at least, customize the user experience a little bit more and make that a better experience for everyone. Oh, and when I was talking, one of the comments that we didn't get funneled up, but when I was talking with James and Charles yesterday, I noticed it a little bit myself. The Waypoint comment library seems to be a little wonky after the update. We're going to do some more poking around in that. And see if we can make that a little bit smoother, but it seems to be working a little bit differently than it used to before. But that's another thing to be aware of, though, with those hotkeys and those shortcuts. If you see it doing something weird that you didn't notice, or it's leaving some kind of markup that you didn't notice, you should be able to hit the escape tool to get the key to get out of it. But yeah, for example, if you hit a specific H and it was highlighting and you didn't realize it was, that might have been why. It's a little confusing if you weren't sure. I didn't know until poking around more that the hotkeys even existed in there. One of the shortcuts we did lose, I used to use a lot, but I'm hoping to get it back. I've got a petition started. I'm only mildly joking, but we used to be able to use Control and Enter to actually post the in-text comments. So little suggestions like that, may be implementable in the future, but we really want to continue, just improving the product and making it better and better. So I guess I want to, kind of take a break there. I know that there's been a lot going on in the chat, and I want to make sure that we have a little bit time for additional Q&A for questions that we might not have gotten to. I know my colleagues in the CETL have been doing an awesome job of keeping up with the chat, and we have so many participants today. I'm so happy to have such a good turnout for this. So well, I had one question coming in the Q&A, and I want to talk about the mobility access for, well, specifically with iPad for Waypoint. So from my understanding, Waypoint as a grader, as a faculty member, is not going to work very well on an iPad as an assessor. That's my understanding. That is definitely something we've passed on as faculty. That is one thing that we got a lot in the survey, and that I've tried to emphasize in my feedback passing on, is that faculty do want a better mobile experience, I mean, in general, but otherwise also for Waypoint. I mean, a mobile experience is just really not possible at this point. So that is one big piece of feedback that we have. With students, with them being able to view their feedback, the way that they're able to view their in-text feedback should be a much better mobile experience. We'll have to kind of see, once it gets out there, and, students are using different mobile devices and different browsers and different ways to access. Well, we might have to troubleshoot a couple, but it should be a much smoother experience than that first iteration that we had a little while ago in the interim. So the left navigation bar should not be still refreshing after, well, let me think about that. The left navigation bar might refresh after a comment. Let me pull it up quick. But if it does, then the paper does not, and it is a much, much less of an impact. Let me pull that up here. So let's go back to highlight. Okay, so yep, it does look like that annotate bar on the left-hand side does blink and refresh really quickly, yes, to log that comment. But the document itself stays put, which I think is the biggest detractor. And I think that this kind of has to update in order to log that comment and refresh, but they were able to isolate that update to where it doesn't update the document as well. So I have a question about the tech folks doing additional investigation into why some student papers didn't load and why some had to be downloaded. This tool should be a much better, because I know what you're talking about with the old tool where some papers just wouldn't upload. It wasn't the file name. It didn't seem to be anything specific. They just wouldn't load for whatever reason. This tool should be much more consistent, and has been so far from what I've seen. But if you are seeing very specific instances where you have a couple of assignments that aren't going through, please do pass those on, and then we can help pass those up and troubleshoot and make that better for people moving forward in the future. That would be good. Yeah, and part of that issue was due to the file names, which should be fixed. But if you are still seeing it, yes, please do pass that on. That would be very helpful for us. Oh, and something I did want to mention too in regards to that mobile feedback. So they were able to view their feedback before on an iPad, and they can't now. They should be able to with this new, as of the update on Wednesday, they should be able to. There is a caveat for those students that might have accessed their feedback over the last couple of weeks and saw that other PDF viewer. They might have to close out, clear their cache, etc. But if they go into their paper now, they should have that new PDF viewer that should be a much better mobile experience than before. And if not, please pass that on, and we will definitely make sure that we are able to get that much more mobile accessible in the future for sure. Stacy, yes, challenging for students to upload in Waypoint from the mobile app and not fully being compatible with the app. That is something that we definitely have on our Waypoint wish list. In general, it's so interesting because our faculty and student user experience are kind of a very customized Canvas experience. It's really atypical from a lot of universities. So when we look at our classrooms in the Canvas app, it's very different. It's a very, very different experience. And that's something that we've tried to iterate as well is, faculty want a better mobile experience, and Waypoint absolutely has to be a part of that, not only just for faculty, but for students who are working from mobile, or, we know we ask our students to have desktops, but life happens and sometimes you have to do your work from wherever you are. So we definitely want to make sure that we can make that as accessible as we can, not only for faculty, but for students as well. Absolutely. We have one question about creating and saving rubric feedback, similar to saving inline comments from Mark. And during my conversation with James yesterday, I was reminded of some of the different tools. He specifically used his phrase express and said that he was really relying on that more now with these Waypoint updates as well. So there are a lot of tools like that that are more so browser based or more so otherwise based to where those can plug in well. But right now, I don't know that there is a that's a good idea for enhancement, though. I mean, down the road, that could be a really nice, like the Waypoint comment library, except for the summarized feedback. That could be very, very useful. And those are the exact kind of suggestions that we're hoping to pass on and hoping to really keep building this tool. Absolutely. Oh, something too that came up quite a bit that I honestly had forgotten, that we had in the old version was people really missed the find function. People used to use the find function to look for, citations or very specific terms, and it's not here on the toolbar. But if you do a simple Control F, the find toolbar does appear up here. So it does require a shortcut to get to it, but that find feature is still there. And there's even actually a couple cool little features here. You can do case sensitive, whole word as well, which is pretty cool. Dr. Moore, that was that's an interesting, idea, because I didn't realize it either until, we kind of moved on to something else, is how kind of simple the old one was. And in some ways that simplicity was great. I mean, it was less clicks. It was, in some ways that simplicity was nice. I think that this is more robust. It is going to take a couple more clicks. Something, Charles mentioned yesterday that I thought was a fascinating idea would be, an option for faculty to do like a classic mode versus like an advanced mode. I think that an idea like that would be really, really cool if we could toggle and really customize the user experience up to that point. The sky's the limit. I mean, we can keep passing this feedback on and see. Pull the rich content editor back up. Oh, yes. Okay. I'm going to hop back over to the rich content editor. We had a couple questions about the HTML switch. So the HTML switch is available either in view, and you can go to the HTML editor there, or you can click on this little icon down here in the very right corner. It's just a little piece of code is what it is. It's not intuitive unless you're maybe a professional coder, because I didn't pick up on it right away either, but there's either this little shortcut down here, or in the view, you can go to HTML editor. And with the images too, I messed around with it a little bit. I need to do some more testing in my own classes to see how I like it. For the images, to upload images, it worked really well. The ones that I tested, to just drag and drop them over, and then they're added to your list of images that you have in your file. These are the stock images. You can link in a URL to an image if that's how you want to do it. But then once you have an image in your images, or in your list, they call it user images, or it's within your user files, it comes right up there on the side, and you should be able to just pull those up and click them in pretty quickly, which is pretty slick. I'm pretty happy with that update. I'm just double checking the chat to make sure we got so much activity, which is awesome. Oh, Susan mentioned something. And that came up in our conversation yesterday with James and Charles, is it's not as intuitive to mark up space that doesn't have text on it as it used to be. We used to be able to just be kind of click wherever and it would kind of figure out what you wanted to do. But with this update, what we can do is, so see if I'm in highlight, it's really not going to let me highlight non-text, but this free text area should let you add things to the margins. Oops. And it'll appear over there on this side without text. And there's a couple of those tools too, you know, that may be useful. I saw there was like an ellipses one. There's one where you can just do a big circle. So if you want to just turn on, I think it's ellipses. Let me see if I can get it to go. Nope, that's still that one. But there's a couple different options within that hotkey tool that I featured. But the free text is a good way to avoid, you know, if you don't have text that you can actually select for what you're looking for, that should do it. Elizabeth, I apologize. I must have missed some. I don't understand why the presenter won't show us the keystrokes. So the keystrokes are shortcuts. I mean, it's just a keyboard shortcut that I've been using. Please show click the highlight for the textbook. Okay, so let me actually just like reload this paper, come into it from scratch. Okay, so the first time when we come in, it defaults to this arrow pointer. So we can either select with the arrow pointer and then it allows us to choose, you know, whatever type of markup we want. Or if we just click within the paper anywhere. So right now I'm using the arrow, but say I want to switch over to the highlight. I'm going to just push the H key and that switches over to highlighter mode. And actually, one of the cool things we saw, some of these don't carry over from paper to paper as well, but if you do customize the color you want, your color carries over. So like for example, when I go into my papers this weekend, I'm going to, as soon as I get into a paper, I'm going to hit that H key to turn on my highlight tool. So instead of clicking with the arrow and then selecting highlight, I can just highlight outright. That's kind of what I was talking about. I apologize if that didn't come across as well. It's a little hard to get some of those things across without also seeing my keyboard. And so that's Wendy, that's a kind of a tricky thing about these hotkeys. It's not Control H, it's just H. So please do take a little bit of time to look through that. If you go to that hotkey, I think actually it's still in my copy and paste. Yep. Take a look through this list because I was surprised at some of them too. It is a little bit counterintuitive. You would think it would be Control H, but nope, it's just H to turn on that highlight key. So some of the other ones still require control. You know, if you're going to be zooming, if I'm zooming out in the wrong place. If I'm zooming out, you know, I have to use control, or if I'm zooming back to original width, I use control, but that's that. So, okay. And Cindy, so Cindy has a question, you know, is there a way that we can set it to our own defaults, like always starting on highlight? And that is on our Waypoint wish list. That is absolutely, those are kind of the kinds of conversations we're having right now. Justice and I met just the other day and we're talking about, okay, can we get highlight to carry from student to student? Can we get my Zoom preference? Can we get that annotation panel out of there as my preference if I wanted to? We're really, really trying to, you know, within the next upcoming updates, to really be able to customize that a little bit more and, you know, save you a couple clicks and a couple keystrokes when you get in, but a couple keystrokes and a couple clicks right when you get in will really make things, I think, quite a bit better than we were seeing for sure. And Dr. Moore, I'm not 100% sure why it defaults to a small size instead of fits to width. Fit to width would honestly be the best default for it. But yeah, if we can get that fit to width to be the general default, that would be a much, much better step in the right direction. I agree. And I know we are at time and it is lunchtime just about everywhere, wherever you are across the country. And I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I think that we got everybody's questions. If somehow we missed them, you know, please follow up with your coach or consultant and we can continue to, or if you have specific feedback, send it to them or me, and we can keep passing this back, and just making the product better and better. And just thank you all for working through the growing pains over the last week. But I am optimistic that this tool will be a much better experience than we've been experiencing over the last couple of weeks. And I think once we get used to it, it will be even better than what we were working with before, and address some of those pain points that faculty expressed with Waypoint. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend.